Welcome to Smash Writing. I am your host, Paul. This is the co-host, Anthony.
How you
and
doing?
Today, we are talking about another Mission Impossible film. This time, Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol. This one came out, I believe, in 2011? Yeah, 2011. Another long streak without a Mission Impossible film, which I guess isn't a bad thing. So, let's break it down. Let's get into the plot. So, basically, the movie starts off, Ethan Hunt is in a Russian prison, and he went undercover months ago for once again, a bullshit of missions, and they're trying to get some information. In order for him to get this information, he has to obviously go into the role of being a criminal. So he gets put into a Russian prison to find some insider information, blah, blah, blah. Well, things on the outside of prison ain't going so well. His team, well, not his team, because it's not an actual team right now, Benji has to get him out of prison because some shit's going on. And basically we are introduced to a villain go by the name of Colbart, who wants to basically start nuclear war between the US and Russia. So he's trying to get Russian launch codes to basically have the ability to shoot off these nuclear missiles, probably not directly at the US, but in the sense of hitting maybe a US ally that will force the US to go after Russia, because everything's going to point that way. It's going to be Russia who's at fault, yada yada yada. So, Benji at this time frame also reveals that he has now become a field agent. He took his exams. He can be like Ethan Hunt. Yeah, not really. Nobody cares. We also get introduction to another female team member, and I'll be honest with you, like, these female team members, once again, they really have no significant role prior until like, they're in the movie, they serve an important role in the movie, but they're not in the next film. Okay, so we have the main people, William Brandt, which is a CIA agent turned head of computer analyst for the CIA. And he's paired up with Ethan and Benji to get these codes to stop the launch. So they're going all around the world, basically, to find this mastermind criminal and to stop him from launching these codes. But they got to hack into satellites, they got to do this, they got to do that. And in the midst of it, we learn that in this film, Ethan is married, but he's not with his wife physically because the safety of her safety always becomes in question with his missions if his cover was to break and they realize that he's married. Basically building off the events of some sort of part 3 of, like, we can't put this woman in harm's way. But by doing that, you reduce her role to basically a cameo appearance. Which, Luther, once again, that's another thing. Luther has very little to do with this film as well. He just makes a minor cameo at the end, and so forth. Well, anyway, we get back into it. The plan does not go as accordingly. Now, Ethan, I think it's like an ambassador building or something like that gets hit by a bomb, and because of the events, the MIF gets AKA disavowed, the whole agency, which then activates the term Ghost Protocol. Ghost Protocol is that since they are being blamed for something, they have to go into hiding, but they still gotta solve the mission and give their innocence. So they do. The Ghost Protocol, MIF, never exists now. It's wiped off the face of the earth, and blah blah blah. But here we go. Ethan Hunt and his team. Um, William Brandt, Benji, and another woman um, goes off and saves the day. Great. Um, Jeremy Renner got introduced in this series as William Brandt. Like I said, he's a CIA computer analyst, which at first you think nothing of it, but then when you see his fight scenes, and even Ethan Hunt makes it like, why is a computer analyst fighting like you're an agent? And that's when William Brandt reveals that he is indeed a agent, but he retired from field work because he was signed to protect somebody, and that person unfortunately died. It is revealed by Brandt to the rest of the team while Ethan's doing a solo thing is that the person that he was assigned to protect was none other than Ethan Hunt's wife, Julia, who he was signed to make sure she is protected. And when somebody was trying to make a hit on her life, he went after this person. But it was a decoy, and they still killed Julia. But Ethan doesn't know this. And William Brandt is living with this guilt because here he is teaming up with the guy to save the world, and he has yet to tell him the bad news, and the bad news is that his wife is dead. So they solve the day, the traditional actions there and so forth, and they solve it, they get the codes back, they shut the bomb down before it could do any damage, so all is good, right? Yeah. So there they are. They have the traditional ending scene to where they're all sitting there, and Ethan now likes his current team. He likes William. He likes Luther. While Luther comes in at the end because Luther, his character, was helping him do the security, but behind the complete stages, behind the camera type of thing. It's a cheap tactic. They probably didn't want to bring. It was actually because I did understand that Ving Rhames was having filming issues, and he couldn't actually be there to do the full part, so they had to rewrite his character as like, oh, I had. This was all a weekend thing, and I was off, basically, but I still had to save your sorry ass, blah, blah, blah. So, Ethan gives everybody a cell phone and says, if you choose to accept the traditional, if you choose to accept this mission, you're now going to be under my team. And it's revealed that their next mission is to go after a terrorist group called the Syndicate. More details on that in a second. So, the Syndicate is a later villain group that we'll talk about in the next couple of weeks. But here, this is where William Brandt opens up to Ethan Hunt. And he tells him, while Julia was in hiding, he was tasked to keep her alive, and he didn't. And he's like, I can't go back into the field knowing that this lady died on my watch, and this lady is your wife. Hunt smiles, basically, and was like, she's not dead. He's like, I knew everything that was going on, and I had to get her out of there and give her to another safe house, basically, so we had to fake her death. And in doing so, unfortunately, you were basically the guinea pig. You didn't know, and for good reason. And William's like, wait, so she's alive? He's like, yeah. He's like, and of course, me being a husband and of course a father too, it was at least a good line where he goes, it was never your job to protect my wife. That's my job. And they give a smile, and he grabs the phone, and he walks off. And then he looks at his wife from a distance, and they give an eye shot like, hey, we love each other, great, blah, blah, blah. And the film ends with Ethan Hunt reading his next mission about the Syndicate into the fog. Woo. And it ends that way. Once again, I think we're deep into the series to where they are introducing characters that are not going to really be the backstory. William Brandt, Jeremy Renner's character had, probably a good backstory to explore, and it didn't really do it. Now, I did like that they made William Brandt, hand-to-hand combat as good as Ethan Hunt. And them doing all these codes, selling diamonds. For once, though, but somewhat, for once in the series, the villains had nothing to do with the MIF. They just kind of had to be the victims, which came across the title Ghost Protocol. Mm-hmm. You do see, you kind of, Benji becoming a field agent was like kind of like a joke type of things. Like, he doesn't fit into the field. He's nervous. He doesn't know how to behave undercover, and so forth. So you see stuff like that, which is fine because you're like, technically he's a rookie under, he's a rookie when it comes to being in the field. He's always controlling the computer, and so forth. So the action was there. Like I said, I don't see much character development. I was just glad that the villains didn't actually have anything to do with MIF. But once again, some of the other characters that Lawrence Fishburne, and a bunch of other people that was in the last film was never mentioned again in this film. Give me a break. Like, bring these characters back. But wait, let me double check that I'm stating facts here, because I don't want to get twisted that I'm almost certain that Fishburne was not in Ghost Protocol. I could be wrong. No, that's right. Alec Baldwin is the new director / secretary or whatever. Yeah, CIA director. He kind of leads the mission on to take down the MIF, because MIF is apparently like a subdivision of the CIA or the government, to where it's they can't take it serious with their methods. So once again, no leadership from the previous films. So once again, you got introduced to Anthony Hopkins, Lawrence Fishburne, and they're not here. I get it. You're trying to give me a team together, but which the more consistent team is going to be Ethan, William, Luther, and Benji. And we'll see that team with a couple, once again, another add-in in the next film. Overall, I'm going to give this one... I'm like literally taking my notes for this film. I'm probably going to stick with 85%.
And what's the reason for you giving 85%?
So, the things that I did like about it was the traditional action. I finally did like that they went away from the villain was part of the MIF crap, and it's a played out storyline that at least for one film they stepped away from. And that was a good touch. I really did enjoy that. I enjoyed the introduction of William Brandt. I think having another character that can go hand in hand with Ethan Hunt was good. And they even had like a little fight scene that almost kind of proved that William Brandt actually might be better than Ethan Hunt. It was a gunfight scene where William's not trying to punch Ethan even though they're arguing. He's actually just disarming him and like tears the gun apart in like seconds rather than knock him out or something like that. That was a cool touch. Making Benji, so some of the negatives was, once again, you added a female character, and I want to look up the female character name right now. I actually made a mistake. They actually do introduce a female, Izai Faust, a disavowed MI6 agent undercover in the Syndicate. she has a story arc that will continue through the next couple of films as well. Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong film. Never mind. X that. So we have Simon. We have Paula Patton as Jane Carter. Talk about a cheesy name. Who has once again a one-off appearance. Yeah, because her boyfriend was an MIF agent who was murdered by the villains. Mm-hmm. I know the Luther character has always been taking a kind of a step back, and I felt like that. I get that Ving Rhames had a scheduling issue, but to me, you should have done playing that better. Instead, you give him a cameo, which kind of made the film out of place. So yeah, I didn't like that. I'm once again getting annoyed to getting introduced to a fifth member of the team now that gets whitewashed.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that you're talking about like Ethan's being married, and I get where the wife only makes a cameo because of the story of Lauzit, but like, come on, you kind of should have gave us a little bit more. Mm-hmm. More focus on William Brandt's character development, I think, was probably would have needed, because his character is complex. You get a little bit of that at the end, but nothing to kind of write home about. And like it confuses me with the story too, because you're telling me the CIA agent that was assigned to a super spy's wife made like such a dumb choice. It just didn't make sense. Another thing that they started doing in this film, and it continues through Rogue Nation and Fallout, and probably Dead Reckoning, we haven't watched it, is the opening credits scenes are scenes from the movie. That is fucking dumb. Like, that is really dumb. Like, I thought that was just kind of like a one-off thing, because that's kind of what they did with Mission Impossible 3, with the middle scene being the beginning scene, where, okay, you didn't see it in 4, so you're like, oh, that's a one-off thing. But it's a trend that they will continue to do in the next films. Ghost Protocol, like I said, I'm giving it an 85. I think it's watchable, rewatchable. Mm-hmm. I think the action is good. I think where it stands in the franchise, it's probably... obviously, I think looking at my notes from the last couple of weeks, number 2 is still the worst film of the series. And I think it's going to stand away. So, I'm not saying this is trending upwards. I'm saying it's keeping pace, which, for different reasons, can kind of get stale. So, we'll see what the Syndicate brings. And that is Rogue Nation. So, until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.